2021 rates were wild for commercial and for residential. And all these people that were buying giant office parks or multifamily and got those rates, whether it be 5, 7, or 10 years, those loan terms are going to change. Now, if you didn't change that cash flow and you were tight, you might be in the, the red now.
STR, they call it the loophole, but it's really just, there's a tax laws written for STR owners if you actively manage the property.
That benefit currently is that you can depreciate 100% of that short-term rental 100%. In the first year if you want, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's what you're seeing, right? It's the homes that are priced accordingly are the ones that are still moving fast. Absolutely. Otherwise, they're gonna sit.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Behind the Glass with Glass House Realty Group. Today, we're lucky to have Ethan Bishop, real estate professional, investor. Super excited to have you here today as we're going to be talking all about investing.
Absolutely.
And Brandon Gonzalez, also a real estate agent with Glass House Realty Group, business owner, investor, father, a man of many hats. So, and then, of course, me, Mo Zahedi, one of the owners and brokers of Glass House Realty Group. Who also wears too many hats and has unfortunately dabbled in the investment world too much. So,
unfortunately.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, that's what we're going to talk about today. It's not all what you see on HGTV. Some of this, there's a lot of ugly that gets edited out.
HGTV should have a hard stop at 9 p.m.
Right.
That way people go to bed, slash those dreams sometimes.
And then the after hours should come on where they show all the deleted scenes and the nightmares that actually go on to bring that shit to fruition.
I think we're onto something.
So,
Ethan, 30
Ethan,
seconds in.
I'll let you tell a little bit more about yourself and Brandon as well, but then we'll kind of jump into this.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. My name's Ethan Bishop. I go by the Bishop of Real Estate here in Cincinnati. I'm originally from Akron, Canton, Ohio area. I'll keep it brief. I moved down here when I was 19. I lost my college scholarship. I partied way too hard my freshman year. Pretty much my parents were like, go get your life together. I moved as far away as possible in-state. That way I could still have in-state tuition. And just built my life down here. I really didn't know anyone coming to Cincinnati when I came here in 2012. I met my wife here back in, 2014. Stepped into the real estate world in 2019 and then went full-time right when COVID happened. And since then, I've sold over 200 properties in and around greater Cincinnati. Last year, I had my best year selling 52 properties, and we're only going up, man.
Mm-hmm. That's phenomenal, especially not being from the area. I mean, that's a whole different podcast and conversation, but to break in and create that type of business when you're not from the area, congratulations. I mean, that's
Thank you.
Nothing
Thank
less than
you. And
impressive.
It's all sphere of influence and referral-based, too. I do not pay for leads.
That's huge. Wow. We will, we'll bringing you on for a master class, not just a podcast.
Cool.
All right.
Brandon?
Yeah, thank you. So, been a licensed agent since 2020. Before that, I was actually started out as an investor.
Which is how I actually met you. You were just in the investment world when we first ran into each other.
Yep, absolutely. So started that in 2017. Started out as a wholesaler, then kind of got into the investing side of things and buying properties, multifamily, doing some BRRRR and short-term rentals, all that good stuff. Got licensed in 2020. My wife actually got licensed in 2018, so she was my agent before, I got licensed. So she's been doing that since 2018. Fast forward, got my license in 2020. Came over to Glass House, about 2 years ago. On top of that, I'm a dad to 3 kids. And then also own a commercial cleaning business as well, on top of all that stuff.
What doesn't he do?
Exactly. And where do you find the time to do it is more importantly. Like, I'll call him. I'm like, hey, man, sorry to bug you late. And he's like, oh, it's all right, man. I'm out with one of the commercial accounts. I'm like, do you ever go to sleep?
Right. So, and he's in shape, too.
Yeah, right.
I try.
No need to brag. All right. Let's calm down. All right. No, I guess a little bit about me. I mean, obviously, broker owner of Glass House, as I mentioned. So, wear a few hats there. But I started real estate in 2016, so just finally hitting a decade here. And when I started out in Colorado, of all places. My brother and my cousin are both brokers out there, so great place to learn, safe place to learn. But my cousin at the time was flipping 100 houses a year. So I came in and saw the investment side real, well, maybe not real for everyone. That was kind of a unicorn in my opinion, but a real in-depth look as to what investment looked like. But that market's wholly different. Like out there, I jokingly call it recession proof. They could basically build the appraised value into any home. It was so desirable to be in Colorado at that point in time that if you put $200,000 into it, you were certainly getting 200,000 out. You didn't really have to run comps beforehand, which is not what I think we're accustomed to in the Midwest.
Not at all.
And when you see these people jump state to state and try to take investing to other places, like I really, I want to kind of start just by talking about our market, because the Midwest is different. Dayton and Cincy are different. Like, we're not even 50 miles apart, Dayton and Cincinnati. And Brandon, you've been working down here with Glass House for a couple of years now in the Cincinnati market. What have you seen different from a Dayton to a Cincy, whether it be sales price, kind of availability, anything?
Yeah, so I think, a big difference between the Dayton market and Cincinnati market, right, just from your average home buyer, right? Your entry point in Dayton is going to be much cheaper than Cincinnati,
Absolutely.
right? The home prices in Cincinnati are, much higher than what you can afford in Dayton, right?
Yeah,
and
for most areas. Yeah,
for most areas, right? Yeah. And it's just because it's such a larger city, right? And then from like the investment side, looking at multifamilies or any investment property, Cincinnati's more of a, I feel, right, because the prices are higher. It's more of an equity play compared to Dayton, where it's more of a cash flow play, because you can get into these properties cheaper and you can cash flow more. Whereas Cincinnati, right, you're appreciating, you still have that in Dayton, right? Those areas that are going to appreciate 3 to 5% year after year. But the entry level in Dayton is so much cheaper, where you're going to cash flow more than compared to Cincinnati.
And we see a lot of, and I'll be curious to, see what you're seeing, but like in Dayton, cash on cash return is huge. Like that's a term you'll hear.
Yeah, that's 100%. Big. And I always tell people that in Cincinnati, that like the west side is practically Dayton, what you're talking about, but anything north, east, southeast of Cincinnati, it's what you're just talking about, how it's more of an equity play versus getting the high cash on cash like you are in Dayton.
Yeah.
On the west side of Cincinnati, you can do that,
right.
But that's because those price points are lower, and they're like Dayton price points on a lot of areas on the west side.
It's changed even just in a post-COVID world, because I remember when I got back into Ohio, which I wasn't even in Colorado for a year, so I was relicensed and working in Ohio by the end of 2016. And I remember, of course, as a new licensee, you always get the investor phone call. And they're like, hey, I'm going to buy 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 houses this year.
Sure you are, bud.
Will you be my agent? And back then, you're like, hell yeah, like, let's go. I'm selling 50 houses this year. Jackpot. This dude didn't call anyone else. I'm the best.
Right.
And the reality is they just went to a seminar, learned how to use other people's money to make them money. They don't know shit about investing.
And they have a credit card balance that they're not paying off.
100%.
And then you run to 40 homes that are dilapidated. You fall through 2 holes in the floor, and they don't buy anything. But my point was, in a pre-COVID world, you'd get those calls because they could buy $60,000 houses in Dayton, and they could cash flow those immediately.
That's true.
And they could get $800 of rent out of that. And it was kind of a gold mine for especially people coming out of the West Coast or bigger cities, where they're like, I can do what? That was my down payment. I can buy the whole house.
If I could go back in time and pick up all the houses that I passed on pre-COVID, like I wish I could go. I passed on so many because I was just such a numbers guy. I was like, when the numbers don't make sense, right? And I never force a deal that's not there. But man, if I could go back in time and pick up all those.
There's something to be said about being a numbers guy, though, because you couldn't plan for the future.
Correct.
And you probably saved yourself where many people fail because they get emotional. They get caught up in the fact,
100%.
well, I don't want to lose at that auction, or I don't want to lose to that guy, or I can make the extra $5,000 work. You know what I mean? I'll just price it $5,000 higher. That's like 101 for you're probably going to get out of this business faster than you thought. You know
it's
what I mean?
funny you say that in terms of the emotions, because I just worked with a buyer that I got through Kunal, right? And it was her first investment property. And one of the things that I told her, I said, you got to treat this like a business. You have got to take the emotions out of it 100%.
Absolutely.
Because that's where people will fail.
Well, and I don't know if you guys ever use this just in your general real estate, but I tell people, like, hey, if you're buying a home to live in, that is not an investment. Buying a house is not an investment.
I preach that all the time. It is a forced savings account. That's what it is.
And it's a place for your family or yourself or whatever the needs you have, a home office, et cetera. But unless you're purposely buying a house, with the investment, hat on, it's not an investment. I'm sorry.
No.
Right. And people argue till they're blue in the face on that,
It is a forced savings account, and it's a peace of mind knowing that you can change the paint color, you can change the kitchen how you want it.
It's yours.
And that sense of ownership, that's a thing that a lot of like American people, they pride themselves on. So I see the benefit of it, and we can get into the details of like the whole renter versus homeowner and their like net worth disparity, but I'll save that for later though. So.
Sure. And well, I mean, just kind of going back to like the market, what are you seeing here in Cincinnati, especially kind of like post-COVID? Like
Pockets. It is still super hot in certain pockets. In other pockets where it was hot, take an area like Evanston.
Okay.
Evanston, so many like home flippers and investors. That was the hot spot in like 2019 to like 2022. And then when rates shot up, there's too many people flipping homes there, I'm definitely seeing stuff sit there. And I have a property listed with for a client of mine out on the West Coast, and like it was sitting, it's price point. Like there's just other ones that are there's just no movement at all.
Do you think part of that's I can't speak for the Cincinnati market. I'm much more familiar with the Dayton market. You two could probably answer though. What I saw a shift in is 2020 to 2021. I called them the Home Depot special. You didn't have to have any character. You didn't have to go to an actual tile shop. You could use the same fixtures, finishes, paint colors, everything. You could rinse and repeat 20 houses in a row.
Right, 100%.
And they sold like this. I think what we're seeing now that interest rates have risen, people are kind of hip to the fly-by-night flippers. Yep. The people who don't really know construction or don't put don't have the right contractors or the right finishing touches, the gold chandelier that goes with the chrome bathroom fixtures. And so now we're seeing those homes sit. I think there's been a demand for a better level of finish. People aren't being fooled anymore.
Oh, 100% agree. And one of those properties, like I told my people out on the West Coast, they were using hard money and stuff, but like they didn't put in a driveway or a privacy fence, and the neighbors to the left of them are interesting people, to say the least. And I was like, hey, if you want to get this sold, you need to do this privacy fence and you need to put in this driveway, because it's not 2021 anymore. It's not 2020. It's not COVID years. You got to go the extra mile if you actually want to sell in those areas now.
Well, and I've never been one to take a shortcut. So any flip I did, especially with this all being in the industry, my frame of thought is, my name's attached to this and I'm going to continue to be in this industry.
Right.
So what I don't want is everyone saying, hey, every house that Mo flipped is a piece of shit.
Right.
And then that comes back to bite me down the road. But I always took the extra mile because you're going to win there somewhere. So when you cut corners, the driveway is a perfect example. I flipped several homes in historic districts near our, headquarters in Dayton, and off-street parking's a nightmare. You're probably not getting a garage, especially if you don't have alley access.
Right.
And so if I can create that off-street parking space, that might not be dollar for dollar in my appraised value, but it's massive.
But it'll get the property sold.
Absolutely, because 10 more people are interested now. Maybe I drove some competition. And I think it's, not seeing the forest through the trees when people are like, no, just skimp on that tile or skimp on this. And it's like, no, you're trying to excite people. You want to get them in here. But
even down to like, and people were buying anything when interest rates were sub 3%.
Yeah,
which to be fair, like,
why not?
And why not, right?
Well, I had this conversation with someone else. When you can buy $150,000 of extra home because of the interest rate, do you care that the kitchen's not updated?
Correct. Yeah.
I guess, kind of steering away from the market, what's your preferred investment strategy? Like, I know you invest as well, not just work with investors.
Yeah, so I work with a lot of small multifamily investors. I work with home flippers. I've got 5 flips going on right now for clients of mine. And some people ask me why I don't do flips myself. Honestly, I enjoy selling them. I think my time's better spent at doing what I'm good at.
Realtor.
Stay in your lane type of thing, right? So, me personally, my wife and I, we have single family rentals, and obviously you can scale faster with multifamily. But for me, I just want less headache. And typically my tenants at the single family rentals, they stay longer.
Yep.
And they treat your property usually
like
better.
It's their own.
Like it's their own home. So like one of the properties that we have, I haven't had a phone call in like 2 years.
That's fantastic.
Like besides like, hey, are you renewing the lease? Oh yeah. I was like, sweet.
Is there anything else for you that draws you to single family outside of kind of that lower headache?
Easier to sell off too. That's what a lot of multifamily people like. Single family wise, if you want to sell a property or two, like you could turn it into a property that someone actually wants to buy to live in. A 12 unit or a 24 unit. You're not selling that to
not immediately.
First time home buyer or something like that. So just to have that option of a liquidity to sell it pretty quick. And fixed rate debt. I like fixed rate debt.
Sure.
With commercial loans, having those 5-7 year terms on it. You're seeing a lot of people right now who got those super, super low rates back in 2020, 2021. And it's coming due.
Well, and that's a great. I just want to pause and talk about that for 2 seconds because went to a conference a couple years back, and that's one of the major things they were talking about is in 2020, 2021, rates were wild for commercial and for residential, and all these people that were buying giant office parks or multifamily and got those rates. Now that I don't think many people know this, whether it be 5, 7, or 10 years, those loan terms are going to change. And we're now at the cusp of seeing that 5th year after COVID.
Or more than double.
So now if you didn't change that cash flow and you were tight, you might be in the, the red now.
Yeah.
If you, those office parks went vacant or that place didn't appraise at what it did when you bought it 5 years ago, but you still got to carry that note. I think we're going to see a lot of commercial properties coming back to the market as a result of people who bought with tight margins when interest rates were very, very good.
I 100% agree.
And now they're going to get slammed.
100%
and
agree.
again, it goes back to that. Don't hope for success, plan for success.
Right.
Run those numbers, make sure what you're getting into is going to be successful no matter what hiccups might come down the road. And you got to know that going into a commercial deal.
Right.
Going back to the single family thing, I like them personally because I want that equity to grow. I really like the idea of that kind of being a savings account of sorts for me, or not a savings account, but a retirement account of sorts where I can get into it for $250,000. I know I can get, a good tenant in there because of the area. I'm going to have the pleasantries of what you just talked, a good tenant, no phone calls, hopefully there for a while. But also I know that neighborhood's going to appreciate because I know the value of the homes around it.
Right.
Especially if we can find something that needs a little love going into it and we can make those repairs, add that value too. And now hopefully, 10, 15, 20 years later, when someone else has paid my note off for me, I actually have a $400,000 house, not a $250,000 house.
Right. And along the way, you got all the tax benefits, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely.
Forced appreciation, doing the cost seg, all that fun stuff. You can do that with single family homes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you, you mentioned you're working with a lot of flippers. Do you consult them all the way? It sounds like you're telling them when to put in the fence, when to put in the driveway.
Yeah.
To what extent are you kind of guiding them?
So I have go-to contractors that I hook them up with down here, and some of them already have their contractors lined up. But I really just I put myself into the buyer's shoes of what this property is going to be like 4 months from now. I try to future pace as best as possible.
Sure.
So I tell them like, hey, you're going to need to do this on the outside, and you already got your scope of work on the inside. But a lot of flippers, they kind of neglect the outside of the home.
100%.
And nowadays, like we're talking about, like you got to go that extra mile.
Curb appeal matters.
Yeah, curb
It's the
appeal
first thing you see
matters.
before you even walk into the door.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm pretty much, I work with a lot of good wholesalers here too. And I network with a lot of agents here, and then I'm on all those like Facebook investor pages in Cincinnati. So like I can't even say that all my deals are coming from like one specific area. I mean, like 2 right now are the wholesalers. One was from an agent that was off market. One was on market. One was from a seller that called me from one of my signs that was listed for my property. So all over the place for.
And are you pulling your personal investments from those same sources? I mean, obviously you kind of get to pick and
pretty
choose
much
what's good for you versus maybe passing to one of your clients who is going to be able to flip it, maybe do better.
Right, and I've actually passed up on a couple recently, but my wife and I were building a beach house in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and we're turning that into a short-term rental property, and that's where a lot of my money and time has kind of been invested the last like 8 months. We're hoping for that to be done in November, but it's a pretty big project that we're doing.
Well, I kind of want to talk about short-term and as well as multifamily, but I know before we jump into the multifamily, which I know you've got a ton of experience with, short-term's popular right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, I think in some aspects it's fizzling out. I think we overpopulated some areas with
100%.
short-term.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's the same thing. People aren't going in doing the right due diligence, but which is a great segue because you did all the research on Gulf Shores.
Yeah.
So like, how'd you approach that? Like,
so there's, with being a realtor and like in doing well in this industry, I'd make a good income and I want to offset those taxes, right?
Yes,
so like,
certainly.
I looked into it, buying the single family rentals here long term. Those are great. One, my wife always wanted a beach house, so I was like, all right. How about we do this, but like we do it the right way where it can put money in our pocket and we can still enjoy it a couple weeks out of the year. So the STR, they call it the loophole, but it's really just there's a tax laws written for STR owners if you actively manage the property where there's just so many benefits for when it comes tax season. On top of that, too,
Well, real quick, I mean, that benefit currently is that you can depreciate 100% of that short-term rental in the first year if you want, correct?
Yes.
Which is massive. Like, I don't think people really explore the tax benefits. And, you know, I hate to brag, but it's the benefit of being the 1099, you know, entrepreneur.
CPA.
1,000%.
You know?
Because if you're not exploring and taking advantage of that, that is a huge benefit. So
No, 100%. And, you know, I just did my research down there. It's a top 20 STR market, and it's growing. That county in Alabama is a top 5 growing county in the United States over the last 5 years with a 32% population growth. And for 6 to 8 bedroom properties there that's within a 5-minute walk to the beach with an in-ground pool, they're grossing on average $250 to $350 a year.
which is wild.
Which is wild. And the cost to build, it's not that bad. It's nowhere near as bad as Florida. Insurance rates are still high because, you know, you're on the coastline there. But I'll share the details with it.
Did you have trouble getting insurance? Is it like I hear Florida? It's
it was a little tough. We definitely had to like ask around to like multiple places. But since we're doing a new build, you know, and everything is, and that's half the reason why we did a new build was to keep our insurance costs lower, and for the fact everything's like hurricane proof now.
That's what I was going to say, because when you were explaining it before, I mean, you're stilted, you're everything. Like you've got full prep, I guess.
Full prep. Like our first floor is 14 feet off the ground. It's on these pillars, and I could show you guys. You guys have seen pictures of it. I don't know if you could show them or bring it up. That'd be cool. But found the land down there. We bought the land. We bought a half-acre land, a 5-minute walk from the beach for $190,000.
Which I've seen. It's a beautiful lot.
Like,
and it's a beautiful
super
area.
cool. Super
the
cool.
Aerial photos are gorgeous.
And it's a little private, like HOA, where you can park your golf carts right at the coastline there, and it's right next to like the best public golf course in Alabama, called Kiva Dunes. And we bought the land for $190,000. It appraised for $225,000. We did a portfolio loan. The construction appraisal for what we're building appraised at $1.5 million. And so we had to keep 30% in there, right, for the portfolio loan. So like our loan on the end of it's about $980,000. So like we're walking into this thing, but our cost of construction was about $1.175.
Oh wow!
So you know, built-in equity from that from the construction appraisal, right? That's you know $300,000, $325,000, somewhere around there, right? If we were to like try to sell it,
sure,
right.
But then you know you'd have like commissions and stuff to sell it and whatnot. But still, it's cool that you know putting in all this work and with the build that we're coming out with, you know, a couple $100,000 in equity
just
right
from
off,
day one,
right off the bat.
Which again goes, I mean, a testament to kind of your research up front, because a lot of people are hoping and praying. They didn't do the research of what's going on around their area. They just assume, like new builds in general, they just assume, oh, if I put the money into it, it'll appraise. That's not the case.
No, that's not the case.
It still has to play within, you know, the other homes and comps in that area. Didn't you tell me you were even researching to the extent of like direct flights into Gulf Shores and like being that accessible?
All of that. So there is, you used to have to either fly into Mobile, Alabama, which is about an hour, 10 minutes northwest of Gulf Shores, or fly into Pensacola, which is about an hour and a half east. They got a federal grant. Some of these like smaller airports in the United States a couple of years ago got a federal grant. They got some private funding down there, and they revamped their little airport there. It used to just fly private little airplanes, but now they have the second terminal will be done next year, but Allegiant now flies there direct, and it's
fantastic.
15 different airports that go there now, and CVG is one of them.
Amazing.
So I was like, you know, we could time it up for my wife. I was like, we could leave our house in Anderson, get to the airport in 25 minutes, you know, go through TSA pre-check, get on the flight. We'll be in our beach house in 4 hours.
That's fantastic.
Because it's a 90-minute flight each way.
Now it's a weekend trip.
Exactly. Exactly. So
all right. Last thing I'll bug you about Gulf Shores, but and this is because I don't think, no matter how much due diligence you do, everyone thinks it's, you know, the HGTV, easy breezy, you're making money, you're done in no time. Didn't a mouse end up being a 2 to 3 month delay due to a government shutdown?
It's still a delay. This is something like my builder typically said. It's called an ITP permit down there, and it's literally for an endangered species, mice. Literally, it's called the Alabama beach mice in 1986. The federal government, like, this is an endangered species. So if you're within this area down there, you have to get an ITP permit to approve the build of your property. Usually it only takes like 2 to 3 months. COVID happened, you know, fired a lot of federal employees. Guess what? This is a federal program, federal permit. So we're coming up almost on a year waiting for this.
When you had a 45 or 46-day government shutdown in
yeah,
there.
so
like,
we were hoping our build was going to be
that.
done by like June. This was because we bought the land last June. We were hoping the build was going to be done like early this summer, but it's just pushed everything back. And now we're not going to be done probably till November, which is okay. And honestly,
I was going to say, luckily that didn't negatively impact you. I wouldn't be poking fun of that, but it's just wild that something as tiny as a mouse can get in the way.
I mean, permits, and not just down there. I mean, Hamilton County. I don't know how it is up in Dayton so much, but Hamilton County, man,
it's not easy.
Oh my gosh,
Permitting
the permit
is a
process.
nightmare. Like I didn't get to watch this, but I was talking with someone the other day where they were just talking about the difference in permitting. So one place they were looking at building was 2 weeks. Permit could be like processed within the first 6 days, about 2 to 3 week turnaround total on a commercial permit. Most places you're waiting literally 2 months. And when you've either taken the money out or you got people, being paid, like I don't think people realize like that all starts, once it's going. So all those delays,
especially like hard money or private money, you gotta, you're paying that interest every month.
They're collecting no matter what. They don't care that you ran into these issues. That was on you.
They might be happy that you're running into issues.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's more money
That's a few
they're
more
making,
points
right?
or a little bit. Yeah. Kind of segueing, I guess, maybe from short-term rental to multifamily. You said you haven't really messed with too much multifamily,
No, not
right?
personally, but I've sold a lot of small multifamily, 2 to 14 units here in Cincinnati is kind of like where I stay in my lane. But anything larger than that, I just like to stay in my lane because I know what I'm good at. So,
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got quite a bit of experience in that world, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, they're smaller multifamily. I've owned 4 units, right? Duplexes. At one point I owned a 9-unit building and needed a complete rehab. But
I'm pretty sure I toured that building and I was really pissed off when you didn't sell it to me.
Well, actually, I did end up selling it for more than what you offered me.
That's probably why I didn't
And it was
get it.
actually a Glass House agent that brought the buyer, and I wasn't even with Glass House yet. But and I started out in, I guess my first rental was by mistake. I was trying to sell my condo in Huber Heights, and that was in 2014, so a much different market, and we couldn't sell it. So then I was like, well, hell with it, we'll put a tenant in place, and had the same tenant for 5 years.
That's
and then
great.
and it was nice. And then going from that single family, I got into some wholesaling, and then winded up getting into multifamily, right? That was kind of my investor identity that I chose to go down, right? To learn that, master it. And then I started moving into some BRRRR methods, right? And then also flipping houses, and then ended into some short-term rentals. So, but that's essentially, I was buying up, anywhere from 2 to, 4-unit buildings with the, occasion get the bigger one, like a 9-unit. So, yeah, that's where I started.
You brought up a couple interesting things there, and I don't know how many people are aware, so I'm going to not explain to you two, but I guess for the audience. But, I think a lot of people get into flips initially because it's a quick way to build capital. And if you're a little cash poor, if you don't have the hard money that you trust or, those private lenders to help you get to that next level, flipping homes is a great way to build capital.
And if you have time, like if you're actually handy, you can do some things.
1,000%. There's a real opportunity for sweat equity in that world to not have to pay and earn a little bit more. 1,000%. But it gets to be at a certain point in time, at least in my opinion, where you're building capital just to pay taxes. You know what I mean? It's not a good way to safe harbor yourself. There's only so many things you can write off, so many things you can do. Capital gains is a real thing, and if you're doing
100%,
and if you're doing flips properly, you're paying short-term, not long-term capital.
Correct.
gains.
I've always been hit with short-term capital gains, and I've wanted to throw up sometimes after I get that tax.
Gross.
Yeah.
So it's like if you don't have a good method, if you don't have a way to roll that, whereas, then I see the BRRRR method, which you brought up a moment ago, where, what is it? Buy, renovate, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat.
Yeah.
So, the idea is that you're going to go get this home, put your capital. Again, maybe you don't have a ton, but you've got $200,000. You buy the $150,000 house. You put $50,000 into it. It's worth $250 at that point in time, and you can go refinance, cash out, refinance, and get your $200 back roughly.
Right.
And then go on to the next project. Now you've got a fairly leveraged home. But you should be able to cash flow that if you did, again, your research properly and kind of buy the next property.
There's a guy here in Cincinnati, Nate Barger. Have you guys ever heard of him?
He lives in. Yeah, he owns the. He actually lives in Mason. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he lives in Mason. He's grown that community a lot there on
It's
Facebook.
huge. It's a huge BRRRR community, and he owns like over $100 million worth of real estate. Like
he owns it. He does that, and then also I think he's big into hotels as well. He buys a lot of hotels. So yeah,
that's one thing I've never messed with. Never got into the hotel game.
Yeah.
It's actually not. I mean, I guess you could probably make some money. I actually have a client right now that we're under contract on a personal home. He owned some hotels. He got completely out of that business. He said, I can't remember how much he told me that they would do a year, and one of them was actually by CBG. And he said by the end of it, I think he'd walk away with like $90,000 a year is all he was maybe making. But the headache that came with with running it, and I mean it was astronomical how much he said they would actually bring in, but he was only making so little.
What do you actually net? You know,
correct.
You see these people on social media sometimes, and it's like I'm bringing in $1 million a month. I'm like, okay, what's your spend?
Exactly.
What are you putting into your personal pocket?
And how hard are you working for that?
Correct.
And my concern with the hotel is like, what's the actual value at the end of the day? Like, that's not an appreciating property like a single family. That's literally built on the income it generates. And if your net profit is only $90,000, like, that's not that enticing. You could make that off 2 short-term rentals.
Don't let the internet gurus hear you.
Right. Yeah, it's like what you just said about, how much are you actually netting? I think that's one thing, like, I always talk about, don't force a deal, right? Somebody will be like, well, I'm going to go buy this, 20-unit building, just to say you got 20 more doors, but you're not netting shit, right?
Right.
I can make more off of my 4-unit than what you're actually netting because you're buying at ridiculous prices and not actually doing the research.
And your 4 units fixed rate, unless now there are people that buy these larger multifamilies or commercial spaces on seller finance. If
sure,
you can get
100%.
If you can get a great seller finance deal, by all means, that's awesome.
I'll always shoot for a seller finance deal, right? And when I was doing that when I first started investing, right, it's you got to create that win-win so that everybody's winning, right? So I would always talk to if we couldn't come to an agreement with the seller, right? It would be like, well, I want to do it at this price. Okay, well, we're going to do your price, but it's going to be on my terms because I got to win in this, right?
Yeah.
If it's going to be on my price, it's going to
be
on
a
your
win-win.
terms.
That's typically what seller finance is. It's got to be a win-win.
You got to create that win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
well, and just going back to the margins area, like I think that's why the BRRRR doesn't always work. Like if you max out, like let's say you find the lender who's willing to give you 80% back. A lot of lenders will only give you 70 or 75% cash out refi.
Yeah.
But if you find that 80, that 20% margin, your mortgage, property taxes, your escrow, everything adding up. Sometimes you don't have the margins really to fully cover.
Unless you hit some home run deal, like an 80-20, it's going to be pretty tough.
My last one was a really good one.
Personally, I try to keep I like to be more 70-60. So like, I don't mind the BRRRR method. I'll take money back out, but I don't need every penny. I'd rather have that safety and not have the volatility.
And that's everyone's risk tolerance too, right? Like,
well, and again, like, what's your pain points? You know what I mean? If you're wealthy and you're just parking money because you want it to appreciate, you might not even care if you're paying $100 a month toward that mortgage. You know what I mean? Right. Someone else is paying 99% or 95% of it.
And that's what every investor's different. Like, I could go sell 2 of our 3 rental properties and go buy a 24 unit with the capital and the equity from those. But like the peace of mind that I have right now and how I am laying how my future is laid out, it's not worth that headache. I don't want to manage a 24 unit. And then someone's like, oh, go hire a property manager. Okay, then go hire a property manager at 10%. They're not going to do a great job. And then I'm going to be hemorrhaging money. Like, no. Like,
well, and there's risk on both sides, right?
Correct,
so like I knew folks up in the Cleveland, Akron area in 2018, 2019. In a matter of 2 years, they amassed like 300 plus doors using the BRRRR method. They were using private money because it was much easier to acquire. They were,
which can work. It can.
Well, they got bit hard, and this is what I don't think people plan for. You've got to plan for the worst case scenario. Not that anyone could have seen COVID coming, but they were burring with private money, so they were doing all the repairs, renting, et cetera, and then they were refinancing those into a longer term private money loan situation. Well, when 2020 came and COVID hit and they put an eviction moratorium on people, there's a lot of people who know how to play the game. If you're renting, on that lower, side as far as income goes, people know how to play the game, and they knew they had a 6 to 8 month, meal ticket where they didn't have to pay rent. And there was a lot of people who couldn't pay rent. So it's not just people taking advantage of the system. It's the harsh reality of life.
Half people's jobs
were
shut down for at least 2 or 3 months.
They lost their entire portfolio. Yeah. Because they could not carry 300 doors when the income wasn't coming in. And that's where single family does get a little scary. When you got a multifamily that has 8 doors on it and 2 people move out,
that is true.
You still got 6 doors bringing money to the table.
That's what was appealing to me for multifamily, right? It was always...
And that's a negative for single family. Single family has its negatives.
Yeah, I've had 2 tenants move out. Now I got $4,000, $3,000 a month in mortgages I got to make. Like, sure, I'm motivated to get that next tenant, but I got to pay in between.
Yeah. Typically with a, like a 4-unit, if one person wasn't paying, you're still making a little bit of money, right? If all three,
or at least breaking even,
right? And 2 people weren't paying, you're probably breaking even, maybe not quite breaking even.
Bad.
Anything less than that, then obviously you're not making shit that month, right? But it's much easier to scale with that multifamily, right? You got one building, 4 doors, right? But at the same time, though, you've also got 4 water heaters and you've got 4 HVAC systems, right? Whatever it may be. Whereas single family,
and 4 different people potentially calling you on the same day.
Correct, right? And then one's bitching about the one that's living upstairs and throwing a party,
Someone's
right? So
exactly making too much noise. Or,
So with single family, it's like it's like an equity position as well, right? And people do tend to treat the single family, as long as it's, you've got a nice property.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever really going to treat a property as if it's like their own, but they will take better
Those
care
are the
of it.
unicorn
Right.
tenants.
Correct.
100%. Like my guy that I had for 5 years, like I was like, wow, this is really that easy. Like I had the same cat for 5 years paying,
Got spoiled on day one.
Right. So, and then when I started moving into some of the multifamily, I was like, well, shit, and then he said property management, they don't always do a great job.
Well, no, I'll touch to that as well. Like, I think it goes back to the research. What is your goal in this? What do you want? So when you're looking at the areas, the price points, that's going to kind of determine your overall tenant. The care consideration you're going to have. Those are things you want to think of. The people who come to me, they're like, I don't want to be a landlord. That's a nightmare. I don't want to deal with this. I'm like, well, the person who dealt with those nightmare stories, for the most part, not a blanket statement, obviously, but they were the slumlords. They're the people who weren't treating the tenant good in the first place. So no wonder they kicked holes in the wall on the way out.
Right.
It's because every time they called about the leaky toilet, instead of just spending $250 and getting them a brand new toilet, they put a Band-Aid on it and it broke in another week. Like,
and you didn't get the job done for 3 weeks.
Right.
But don't get me wrong, you can still get the nightmare tenant in a great place. It's happened.
Yeah.
You mentioned scaling on multifamily, and I think that's another way. Like, the beauty of real estate is it's a great way to invest money and really avoid tax penalties if you're smart. I'm not going to pretend to be a CPA, so everyone go do your own research.
Right.
But with multifamily, a strategy I've seen is, they go in and they buy the 6 to 8 or 10 unit. Maybe hopefully it's not performing, so they can go in, add some,
add value. Yeah,
exactly, increase rents, sell it for more. But now they 1031 exchange that so that they can defer that capital gains. They buy a bigger, property. Larger one, and they do the same thing over and over. And next thing you know, they took their $200,000 investment, and they've got well over $1 million in real estate asset that's performing, drawing income in for them every year. They never had to pay taxes. Now they can sit on that one if they want. Or maybe they sell 3 of their single family flips, 1031 exchange all those into one large cash flowing property, hedge their bets because now they've got 100 tenants instead of 3 or whatever that might be. And it's just, I don't know, real estate to me,
you can literally print money. Like 100%.
I know a guy, he's in his upper 30s in Chicago, and he personally owns, with no outside investment, I believe it's 2,300 units now.
Wow.
And he started maybe 10 years ago.
which is wild.
Which is insane. It can be done. But it's very special
appetite
people that can do that.
And it goes back to what you said at the very beginning. I guarantee he's a numbers guy. He might not now be
he
at
is. He's a wizard.
2,800.
Yeah. Doesn't drink, smoke. I mean, he's just he's a calculator. Like,
I remember getting in arguments. There's a gentleman that works with us at Glass House who does probably about 30 to 50 flips on any given year, depending. And I would watch him walk over $500. And I won't call him out on this, but I'd be like, you're insane. I was like, that's $500. Like, we both know you can make that work. He's like, numbers don't work. Numbers don't work.
100%.
I can't fault him for that because now he's done it for 5 years successfully because he plays by his rules.
Yeah.
Like,
never force a deal. If the numbers don't work, the numbers don't work. And that's where people get themselves in trouble. Never force it. Never force it. Ever.
Absolutely.
Be okay with walking away. And I have walked away many, many times.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care what anyone says. You can do all the right planning. You're still going to uncover, things you don't want to see. I mean, I've had to run out raccoons before that weren't there when we started. You know what I mean? There's the HVAC system that dies when you're halfway through.
That brings me to like my biggest point with, whoever's listening who hasn't invested in any real estate is that you do have to take a risk though.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Like there's like you are saying like, the numbers have to make sense, but there is a point where it's like you need to press the throttle, ride the bike on 2 wheels and go. Like
100%. Yeah. And I think it comes down to, people that want to get into investing as well. Like, you just have to take that step, right? You realize it's really not as bad. It seems scary, right? You get nervous and like,
analysis paralysis, like
correct, right? And it's once you do it, you really see that it's not that bad, right? You just got to take that first step.
Pretty much most things in life, by the way.
100%.
I'm not a therapist or a life advice person, but
no, but change is scary for everyone. Taking that leap of faith is change. I mean, heck, for all of us, just getting into real estate in itself,
absolutely,
is a leap of faith. No, I'm just curious. I mean, we've joked a couple times about HGTV and the glam of, what it's like to fix a property, or no, just knock out any old wall, and I love hearing people, like, we'd walk into a house and like, we'll just blow this wall out. I'm like, well, that one's low there.
Right. Yeah, you're not doing that. Not. Right.
Like, that one's not going anywhere. I mean, it can. All things can be done with money.
City inspector's going to come in and be like, no.
Right.
Just remember,
redo that.
Your goal here was to make money, and you just spent $50,000 you didn't need to spend.
Yep.
So it's just funny, the things you hear people say when you walk in.
Well, that's the thing. They watch HGTV and they think they're going to be the next flipper, right? And then they go in and they think that they're going to cut corners. And I can assure you, as soon as you start tearing into some shit, you're going to uncover some things that was an expense that you did not account for.
Start with your own home bathroom remodel first, and let's see how that goes. If you can manage that, then maybe let's get into the flipping world.
Right.
Absolutely. And if you don't have a construction background, if you don't actually know the difference between a hammer and a screwdriver, do not DIY this.
Absolutely not.
I went into a flip or get impatient. And I've seen people get pissed off. And like, one example, beautiful home. They actually did a really good job with the majority of all the finishes. Contractors flaked. Owner went in and put the hardware on the cabinets themselves. Mm-hmm. Didn't have the template tool or whatever. You cannot, now there's no way to repair this. There are holes in the face of all these cabinets. Every one of them was uneven. You cannot eyeball that, by the way.
They're probably nice cabinets too, right?
They were custom. So now it's like, you just ruined $15,000 worth of cabinets in less than an hour due to impatience.
That's just the cost of the cabinets too. Yeah. If you had to like remove them.
Oh yeah, 100%. If you're going to replace, do anything. So like, unfortunately now what you've done is you've taken what was a really nice flip, and you put the perception to anyone who walks in and sees that this was done half-assed. And the unfortunate thing is that wasn't the case in this.
Or even like the small details of like when you walk into a property too, like the first thing you do, you flip the light switch on, but you notice that the plate for the light switch is like at a 40-degree angle. It's like, what are you doing? Like, at least try to make it level.
Yeah.
Like,
so that's why it's important anytime you get into any kind of investing, whether it's, multifamily, single family, short term, rehab, you can't do it alone. You got to have a team built around you, right? And that's what it comes down to. Hiring the right contractors and like a lot of my out-of-state investors that I work with, they know they can rely on me. And just like you said, you've got contractors for them. Like, you got people lined up. Hey, this person's this, and this. And hey, by the way, if you need a real estate attorney here in Ohio, I've got the guy for you. If you need a CPA here in Ohio, I got a guy for you, right? So you can't do it alone. You have to put people and processes in place if you're going to be successful
like I said, stay in your lane.
100%.
Use the other lanes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, and that's just it. Like, so you're already obviously coaching your clients, helping people get to the finish line. You've got the background to do the same and have done that for your clients as well. You mentioned out-of-state investors, and I know you both have dealt with this, but I love when I get the call from California and they're like, oh man, I really want to go look at this house. It's 5,000 square feet. It's only selling for 80,000. Man, Dayton, Ohio is wild. Like, I can't believe how far our money goes. I'm like, well, brother, this isn't like, the Wild West. Like, that home is $80,000 for a reason. Do your research. Like, did you do a Google Street View? Like, did you know the 4 houses on that street are boarded up? You know what I mean? Your primary neighbor is groundhogs and raccoons.
I always say, double check them crime stats on Google.
That's right.
I can't tell you, but check Google.
It's probably for the best. I understand why they put the, restraints on us to talk about schools, talk about crime, et cetera. We're not subject matter experts, even though we might feel we are after we've worked in an area for long enough.
Right.
But sometimes you wish you could just shout like, no.
Yeah,
for sure.
You gotta, tiptoe that line and not cross it.
Well, I've always approached it from a like, what's the what are you hoping for in a return? Let's just talk about your investment and the future of that investment. So like,
and how much or how little of a headache do you want?
Right. So like, you can buy the home for 80, and you can certainly put 50 into it. I hate to be the one to tell you it's still only worth 80.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that helps you make your decision.
Right.
But no, I think we could talk about this for days. You guys are more than knowledgeable, and I love this topic. I'd like to have you guys back and do it again and just kind of get into stuff. I'm hoping we get some responses from people as to like what they'd hear about. I think one of my biggest pet peeves as you read books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, there's no key to success in there. Like, just like you said, you'd happily share everything you looked at with Gulf Shores. Like, I don't see investment or real estate as a competition business. You know, we're all three successful and our paths haven't crossed.
Yeah.
There's room for everyone to kind of rise to the top.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm an open book. Like, I'm not keeping any, like, you know, if you need help with investing, people know that they can call. I'm an open book. Like, there's plenty to go around for
Paying
everybody.
it forward, you never know who you're going to talk to, who you're going to meet, the hands you're going to shake just by, you know, helping someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just like the relationships you were talking about a minute ago, I'm sure you found a large majority of them by doing that type of stuff. You know, you're helping them, they're helping you, and now all of a sudden you're collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And everybody's winning again. All right, we've joked a few times about, you know, the TV rendition, the reality TV show of, you know, what flipping a home is. You know, we always like to end the podcast with what we call breaking the glass, you know, and really truly getting behind the scenes and talking about the nitty gritty. And there's no other stage like investment in real estate that, I mean, I know I've seen some wild shit, things I can't unsee, unfortunately, as much as I would like to.
We all have.
Yeah.
But well, what is it?
Ooh, one of my best I've on the west side in Cincinnati. This is about 4 years ago. Out of state investor client. We're looking at a lot of like, you know, 4-unit properties. Knock on the door, you know, anyone home? No one's there. They had a 48-hour notice, like the tenants did, but you know, the tenant could be there, they could not be there. Walk in, turn the corner. There's a dude who's probably 85 years old, and he's just completely naked, standing there, completely naked. And I just go, "Yep, gotta go." Yeah, that one was more of a funny one, kind of traumatizing for my eyes. Another one was about actually one of the first like investors I worked with. Same thing. Unfortunately, the west side again of Cincy, and walk in, and it was not animal feces that was everywhere.
No.
It was human feces. Or they had a very, 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 very large dog, but I didn't see any dog toys or dog food, so. Or I don't know what animal was in there, but it was human feces all over the floor and the walls. And just they had gotten evicted, and maybe they just got angry at the landlord. So
there was no feces. Well, there was some arguments among some friends of mine as to where the feces in this house came. But the first flip I ever bought in Columbus, in what was an up and coming area, Old Town East at the time. Now it's blown out of the water. But the mother had passed away. The daughter was selling it, and the two sons were unfortunately addicted to something and squatting in the home. And in an effort to sabotage the deal after I went under contract, one of them took an axe to the main power line coming into the house. To this day, I do not know how we didn't find that dude on the floor, but I mean, axe straight through it.
Yeah, wow.
I really wasn't that upset. We were going to replace all that electric anyways, and I got another $10,000 off the house as a result of that. But
used it to your advantage.
I was like, man, come back, knock out a couple windows. Those got to get replaced too. But it's wild what people will do, sometimes to try to sabotage a deal because they know they're going to lose a home, which in many cases is an unfortunate circumstance. But
it is, yeah.
You will walk into some wild stuff, which this isn't my story, but I'll steal it from my cousin, Matt, in Colorado, the one I mentioned earlier that flipped 100 homes a year. They were wild. They went, and this is like one of those success journeys. They went from like 6 homes haphazardly one year to found a right contractor, brought him into the fold, made him a part of the business.
And they were just cranking.
Then they went to like 60 homes the next year, and then it was 100.
That's crazy.
That is
to the
crazy.
point where I'd be, he'd call me driving down the road and like be like, hold on, and pull over. And he's like, take the sign out of the yard. I'll buy it. And they're like, well, I didn't tell you the price. He's like, it doesn't matter. I'll buy it. Just take the sign out of the yard. I'll be back tomorrow, I promise. And they go on for like 5 minutes because no one believes that crazy person. They get back on the phone. I'm like, Matt, did you just buy a house? He was like, Fizbo, I don't like that shit in my neighborhood. And he's like,
wow.
And he just was that confident at that point in time that he was going to flip it. But they'd buy a ton of homes at auction. And you can't always get into those homes,
Right.
more
It's
often than
sight
not.
unseen.
You cannot
100%.
unless there's some platform to do an open house, whatever. And so, foreclosure takes a long time. Everyone thinks when they see pre-foreclosure on Zillow or something that the home's doomed. It's like, that's a 6 to 8 month, year-long process, depending on the bank, et cetera. So anyway.
Well, I always tell people the auction is like, you ever see the show Storage Wars?
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people saw those shows like, well, they just, they open up the gate, but you're not allowed to touch anything or see anything.
Yeah.
That's an auction home for you. Like, you can go drive by it, but
you don't know
what you buy inside the box. You have no idea.
Cracker Jack box, and you don't know what toy you're getting.
Exactly.
And in their case, it wasn't the best. This poor woman was widowed. She was an immigrant, I think, from Germany or something like that. Didn't have any family or friends locally after after being widowed, and she had unfortunately passed away in her sleep peacefully. Thank God for her. But when they came into that house, who knows how long after that body was still in the bed. Like she'd been there. Like the smell was overwhelming. The contractor, that poor guy, had nightmares forever. My cousin's business partner ended up on the news.
I think I'd be taking a week or two off
Right.
of work and just life at that point after seeing that.
Yeah, that's not. You don't ever see that on HGTV for some reason. I don't know why.
They don't show that part.
Yeah,
yeah.
They just show all the before and the after pictures. Like,
yeah.
What about you? Any horror stories in your world?
From some of the properties that we've built, I know or purchased. There was one. I think it was over in a historic district over there by UD. I think the lady owned something like, I think it was like 8 dogs and like 12 cats. So when you walked into this place, literally the bathroom was animal feces everywhere.
Ugh.
I mean, the whole house was horrible. So you see a lot that. I'm
allergic to cats.
Yeah, same here. We've had experience where we checked out a 4-unit building. This was when my wife was mine and my buddy's agent at that time, and we walked into a property like, hey, hello. We're walking around. There's an alarm going off. It's one of those alarms when you open up the door, it starts screaming at you. Close the door, it turns off. We're walking around and we're doing our thing, and the back bedroom, the door's open, and you look in there, and there's some lady there on the bed completely butt naked. We weren't sure what was going on. We actually called police to do a wellness check because we have no clue. And there was a dog also barking the whole time, so no clue how this there's that. I've ran into properties I've went and checked out, and I used to work in corrections. So when I worked at Lebanon Penitentiary, I went and checked out a property, and one of the tenants was actually an inmate that I had a use of force on at one time. No. So luckily everything was cool, but those are just, you never know who you're gonna run into and what's behind that door. So.
Right.
It's not always like, I hate to laugh at some of these situations, but sometimes it's all you can do when you're confronted, with a 90-year-old man who's just butt naked, looking right back at you, wondering what you're doing in the house.
The image never leaves me.
Right.
I wouldn't imagine that's because you want it there. But then there's the unfortunate things. Like it was like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory house. If you remember that movie where Grandpa Joe and everyone's sleeping in one bed. Like I've entered these slumlord houses because you're showing investors that want something that's occupied, et cetera. And there's literally 4 people in a bed that don't get out. You know what I mean? So you're walking through the home, you go into the next room, and there's 4 kids in a bed. Yeah. The whole home smells. That it's not a good place. And that's where it's really sad, because the person who owns that property just doesn't care about the lives that live in it. They're not taking care of anything, updating, the roof's leaking, toilet doesn't work, whatever it might be. And that's the other ugly reality of this world, is like there's not anything to kind of hold those folks accountable, and you got to go walk right into it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when you see some of those, especially when there's kids there and they're living in these kind of conditions. And there has been times where I have actually picked up the phone and said, hey, you guys should probably do a wellness check on this place, because it just wasn't. It just didn't feel right, right? Leaving a place where it was just absolutely disgusting, and you've got kids, and it's unfortunate, right? It there's people that don't have all the money in the world, but at the same time, it doesn't cost a lot to pick up some cleaning product, But in the same breath, are people really going to care about their property if you have a owner who's not taking care of the property, right? It's kind of hard to want to take
honestly,
care of it
those
yourself.
Landlords give the good ones a very bad rap.
Absolutely.
Because
100%. But it's a great point. Like if the roof's leaking, you got water dripping, why are you going out of your way to clean up or do whatever? And it unfortunately kind of breeds that failure.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's unfortunately lack of education too. We see it as realtors when people are buying their first home. People don't know how to care for them.
Right.
It's, again, that's why I say it's not an investment. Like you need to educate yourself. You need to know what you're doing. Little things can damage a home significantly. Something as silly as not having, little gutter extensions to pull the water away from the home.
Right.
No one thinks about that if they've never owned a house before. Ultra damaging. So I don't know. It is unfortunate.
And there's a lot of agents that don't know.
Yeah.
And,
right.
I tell clients that all the time. I'm like, you need something, I have people for it. Some agents are like, I don't want to refer people and get into like potential legal whatever trouble. I'm just like, no, like these are human beings. Like, you can extend a hand, and like if you have connections that you know, like, and trust, like, refer those people.
Yeah, and that's like when it comes to agents that don't know as well, like sometimes that's so frustrating too, right? Because here you got a property that you're trying to sell and you know nothing about investing. And like, so when I was an investor, I would actually call agents the gatekeeper, right? They were the ones in the way for me to actually get to the pain point and, what the seller was actually looking for. So it's, at times it's frustrating when, even some agents don't even know what the hell they're doing. And it's
I think agents in general, 75% of them should get out of the business. Mm-hmm. And then of the 25% that's left, only 5 to 10% should really be into the the investment side of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's, I'll liken it to commercial real estate. If you don't truly know what you're doing in commercial real estate and you're a residential agent, stay in residential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've referred out like 5 or 6 commercial deals out because
it might as well be a different industry.
Stay in my lane, and guess what? All those deals I referred out, I got a referral check on, and the clients are happy, and they've referred me residential business.
Yeah.
So
100%. No, do what you know and what you can be confident in, and lead people to success.
Right.
It's Well, I'll let you guys put on a class sometime soon so we can educate the masses. I don't know. You guys got anything else to add as far as good, bad, the ugly?
I just like to. So you're more specialized in the Dayton area. What are you seeing, like days on market for just not investing purposes, just like kind of overall, market. Just residential? Like what's going on in the Dayton market that you're seeing?
Well, you'd probably have to ask him because I'm more in the Cincinnati area.
Well, I guess now you are. So Mo, what are you seeing up there with your brokerage?
It's interesting. So we actually just got back from a conference in Austin, and one of the things they were talking about on a national level, and I'll get to Dayton in a moment, was days on market.
Yeah.
And I think what we've seen is a correction. I still think it's a seller's market, truly, and I know that could be somewhat market dependent, but overall in Dayton, and I think nationally, we're still in a seller's market. Inventory's up though. It goes back to what we were talking about on investments earlier. People are a little pickier now. Interest rates are higher.
100%.
They don't want to go fix a bathroom or a kitchen if they don't have to. And
they want inspections.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if they feel that home is priced too high now, there's buyer fatigue. They're not going to pay a premium like they would in 2020 for a home that's not a premium house. That doesn't mean it's a bad house, but if it needs $30,000 worth of work, it probably shouldn't be at the very top of what the comps are anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And so what was interesting from this conference is they talked about how homes that have sold were on the market for 17 days. Our national time average was like 56 days, meaning the homes that are sitting are just the ones that were misappropriately priced.
Yeah.
And it's been such a labor of love, that's what we'll say, to kind of explain to sellers that, hey, it's not the same market. And I get that the neighbor's house sold for $480, but they have granite countertops, custom cabinets, every bathroom is redone.
And probably another bedroom.
Yeah. Right. And you still have laminate in the original oak cabinets. And it's a beautiful home and it's move-in ready and it's a great neighborhood, but that's a difference of $50,000 worth of work if they want to update your house. So we can't also sell for what they sold for.
That's what you're seeing, right? It's the homes that are priced accordingly are the ones that are still moving fast. Otherwise, they're gonna sit, right?
And in very desirable school districts. At least here in Cincinnati, that's still a thing.
No,
absolutely.
So Dayton is no different, and I would say Dayton, there's the pockets of where young professionals, et cetera, want to live. They don't care about the school district.
That's the Oakley, Mount Lookout, Hyde Park area here. So.
Really clean and nice, goes in a minute.
Yep.
But those same historic districts that were super popular, 5 years ago with low interest rates, people aren't buying old houses with old house problems for a market premium anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's kind of the across the board Dayton view. Are you experiencing in Cincinnati or?
No, same thing. And it's just still school districts are huge though. I mean, like if you're in that, Indian Hill or Sycamore school district, Mason, as long as the property's priced pretty fairly, it's going pretty quick. Yeah. But in some areas where I can't talk about school districts being bad or good, but in some other areas where, 3-4 years ago, where people were still buying at that premium, just like you're saying in Dayton, where it's like, yeah, you can't get that price anymore, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Like, you need to be a little more realistic on
Well, inventory has
pricing.
gone up year over year.
Yeah.
So we had like, I think a month's worth of supply during COVID of homes, 30 days of homes on the market, whereas 6 months is a healthy market. And I think we're getting back to that. So people also have the opportunity to just be choosier. They can wait. Homes aren't selling in 24 hours. There's more to look at. So they don't have to, depending on the urgency or their needs to move, they don't have to make a snap decision anymore.
Yeah, I'm seeing too, because I help. I'm pretty like 50-50 buyers and sellers. I am seeing buyers get more requests post inspections like being agreed upon.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely seeing that. During COVID, it was like, ha, you're gonna ask me to fix the toilet,
Right.
Kick rocks,
Right.
Sparta kick, right? Like
That's adorable. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. You're able to get more, requests done on the defect notice from the inspection,
or
right?
seller
And
credits, or a mix of both. Like
absolutely, even negotiating that original purchase price, down from the start.
Exactly, sale price, bringing it down too. Yep.
So yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. So
that's awesome. Well, I don't know. Thanks again, guys. Once more, Ethan Bishop, the Bishop of Real Estate here in Cincinnati. Super happy to have you on. Thank you.
Thanks, Mo.
Brandon, always a pleasure. Love hanging out with you, your
sir.
buddy and an agent. And it was great information from both of you. To everyone following us, obviously, like, follow, subscribe. We love that. Please find Ethan on Facebook. He's a social media machine. You'll get more great tips from him.
And buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, we didn't even get to that today. Damn it. We're definitely coming back.
Oh yeah.
But no, please like, follow, subscribe. And if there's anything you want to hear us talk about, anything you want us to engage with, let us know. Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear it. So thanks.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Glass by Glass House Realty. Want to learn more? Go to glasshouserealty.com/podcast.